bigger. And it's just mind-boggling the scales that it's at least in principle possible to build on within this universe. But and the universe generally does it. Stars are big, you know. Most of the things the universe does are huge. And what the reality of it is that we're just so small and insignificant that it's just hard to fathom just the scale of everything, whether it's the size of the universe or what's possible to be, you know, exist within it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's that level of fascination and wonder that I really kind of embodied here. Just taking this what if, you know, the fiction in the hard science, where I wanted to just explore how we would respond, how different types of technologies might be utilized, whether they are currently in existence today or are in various stages of research or have been mothballed, suddenly are brought back from just being a bunch of text on a dusty shelf in a lab somewhere, and bringing all that to light for the sake of learning and discovery. It's just simply fascinating to me.
Where can people get Eternal Shadow Fall of Gods?
It is available through Amazon, Barnes and Noble, certainly Google Play, and those are the kind of the big three. And it is available as an ebook and paperback.
And time for a question out of left field. Favorite solution to the Fermi paradox?
Ooh. Okay, gut response. We're in a zoo. So the idea where we haven't detected anything because other species are preventing us from discovering anything for our own sakes. The idea that other species know that we exist, and they're either choosing to not respond, or they're hiding evidence of their existence, or they are manipulating what our own technology could potentially see for the sake of either isolating us or simply using us as a control against other kind of experiments, and they don't want us to know that they are there.
It's interesting that it could be incremental contact in such a situation, so that you don't get contacted, for example, until you try to make advanced artificial intelligence. Then you become a threat to everybody in the galaxy because you can lose control over it. So it's sort of one of those things where you're in a zoo until you get to a certain point. Then you find out there's alien life everywhere. I kind of find that one of the more terrifying scenarios.
I think it says a lot about, it can say a lot about the state of the universe in terms of how civilization can potentially advance, or it could say a lot about humanity and how we are just so, like, at a base level, so territorial, where we would rather either prevent others from advancing for our benefit, or if we met something that suddenly became our equal, we would want to do everything we can to understand it before unleashing it to the greater world as a whole. I do think it's the implications of the zoo hypothesis, I think, are very interesting and scary.
They are, and then the variants of it, you know, for example, they're simply ignoring us, you know, they're not hiding from us, they're just ignoring us, and it sort of evokes, actually, one of my favorite sci-fi novels, Rendezvous with Rama, where aliens simply didn't care about us, and we just weren't interesting enough. And that, you gotta wonder what the psychology of that would be. If we saw an alien probe pass through the solar system and kept going, would the psychology then be everybody was disappointed, or why didn't they give us any attention type of thing?
It could go that way, or it could be if it was something that we knew or identified as truly artificial, and it came and went, even coming as far as, you know, within our own solar system. It could also be a trigger for inspiration, driving people to want to find out where it was going and to do whatever it took to get us going in that direction, which I think could cause more harm than good, but it could also be very beneficial for mankind. A sense of kick in the pants from a from a galactic standpoint to get our act together and not focus inward so much.
Do you expect that we will see some evidence of intelligent alien life anytime within the next 100 years? Do you think we're close to that, or do you think that's just not likely to happen in reality, or what do you think?
In my heart, I would love to be there if we made any kind of contact or something made contact with us, but at the same time, I can't help but feel we're at a point in history where humanity can take such incredible strides forward, but at the same time, we haven't crossed that maturity threshold, another answer to the Fermi paradox, where we haven't crossed the point where we won't potentially destroy ourselves or sufficiently damage our civilization to the point where we just regress hundreds of years backwards. So, I mean, I feel like we are at a point where we can make many decisions that could take us many different directions. But I guess the cynical side of me says that no, we likely won't see anything happen. But at the same time, the ignorant kid in me is holding on.
Yeah, I'm sort of the same way. I don't know that we'll ever see it, but I'd like to see it. I hope it's nice when it happens, and I hope it doesn't involve the loss of 2 gas giants. All right, Trevor, it was a pleasure talking to you today.
No, this was great. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Yep, and we'll have you back for the next book you do.
No, thank you so much. I look forward to bringing more of this universe of mine into your hands.
There are some indicators of what might happen if a radio signal or some evidence of an alien civilization surfaces. On the one hand, there was Orson Welles and the War of the Worlds, though it's often overstated what the effect of that actually was. Few really thought that Martians were invading, but at the time, the idea that Mars had a civilization living on it was rather widespread in the West, due to talk of canals being visible on its surface, which really turned out just to be an optical effect from the telescope and perhaps a bit of wishful thinking. And then there is the opposite side of the coin, which is more disconcerting, finding evidence of an alien civilization, or never finding it at all. Are we alone?
John.
And Mars.
Would you live on a lunar colony? How about Mars? Would you give up literally all of the comforts of home, Earth, in order to live in someplace new? Not just simply moving from one country to another and changing cultural paradigms, but leaving the planet quite literally customized for in order to live in what can only be described as something new, something alien. How about giving up direct personal contact with most, if not all, of your loved ones for extended periods of time? Just the idea of having a real-time conversation with a friend back on Earth takes on a new dimension when time delays are accounted for. What of food, where even the very taste of food as you knew it on Earth is changed, muted by the realities of space on human taste buds? Even though built by humans, these colonies would be alien worlds of sorts. Differences in gravity, differences in the realities of day-to-day life, differences in culture among your fellow humans, and many other factors will make colonization of the Moon or Mars amongst the most unique experiences in human history. You will be an explorer if you go, something in the grain of the very first humans to leave our native Africa and spread out on the continents of this world, of which we are now present to some degree on all of them. I've always found it sad that the stories of the people that took the very first steps into what was then an alien world have been lost. No one yet knew how to write them down. This, of course, is not the case now. Stories of colonization will be broadcast to all the people of this world, who will follow the progress and personalities of the colonists like the world followed the first lunar landings with bated breath. The first colonists of these worlds will be rock stars, victims of tragedy. All forms of human narrative will play out in these new territories of humanity. While the settings may be different, the human stories will remain the same. Going into these worlds will be love stories, stories of strife, stories of passion, and, no doubt, tragedy. While we are not yet there for these, for lack of a better term, reality stories to unfold before us, we are close. By 2030, if SpaceX has its way and some decent successes, there could well be the beginnings of a colony on Mars. Perhaps it will take a bit longer, but maybe earlier, we shall see. But what we can say today is that we are sufficiently advanced to the point that imagining colonies and setting fictional stories within them is here and credible. These are not the imaginings of Burroughs, where one is mysteriously transported to Mars to interact with the inhabitants of a dying world. Rather, this world is, as far as we know, already dead, and we have the technology to at least survive on it. From that comes the nuts and bolts hard science fiction of my guest, who is perhaps among the best ever at fictionalizing real potential environments that people will confront as the beginning of our period of solar system colonization begins.
This is Event Horizon with John Michael Gaudier. John is joined today by novelist Andy Weir, author of The Martian, which has since been adapted into a film of the same name by Ridley Scott. Andy's new novel, Artemis, focuses on lunar colonization and the nuts and bolts of living on the moon. In 2016, Andy received the John W. Campbell Award for Best New Writer.
Andy Weir, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to talk to you. Andy, you recently wrote a short story that you released on photography. There will be a link in the description below. Now, this short story's premise, without going into spoilers, is the dangers of AI, or maybe not the dangers, just the realities of an artificial intelligence interacting with humanity. Is this something that scares you?
No, not at all. It's interesting. Digitocracy is getting a lot more attention than I expected. I wasn't trying to make a wasn't trying to make a statement or anything. It's just a short story I wrote. And I actually think that AIs and computers and stuff are going to dramatically improve the world. I think that, like, if you take a look at something like AlphaGo, right? Or AlphaZero, which plays chess. It's now to the point where the computers can play chess and go better than any human, right? Well, what about what happens when we get an AI that can manage an economy better than any human? You know, then that'd be interesting, because if you do what the AI says, it's like, well, we don't fully understand it, but it said to increase the tariff on imported barley by 0.03%, and now we're having a housing boom. You know, so it could be really interesting.
What that brings up in my mind, though, is that if an AI can run an economy better than humans can, and say it can create laws, it could also do things like do science better than humans can. You know, a computer could be a better scientist. Now, in the 30s, the economist Keynes had pointed out in the paper that eventually this means the entire human race goes unemployed. So, do you think that one of the dangers of AI is the social upheaval that comes from technological unemployment?
That unemployment is the best thing ever, because I think that, broadly speaking, like, you know, in tens of thousands of years, when people look back on the history of the human race, they'll be like, you know, the Paleolithic era and stuff like that. We are in the scarcity era, and we're working toward post-scarcity. When we reach post-scarcity, that's when people don't have to work at all. Like, everything you need is dealt with by automation. So it's like, it's okay if everybody loses their job if nobody needs to do a job. If it's like, hey, I'm sick, well, go to the doctor. And it's like, okay, it's a computer, but it takes care of you. And it's like, hey, I'm hungry. Well, go get some of the food that our robots and computers are generating for you. You know, it's once you reach that point of post-scarcity, that's good, not bad.
So when do we go unemployed? When do we reach a point where an artificial intelligence can write a better novel than a human can?
I think about that a lot, and I suspect that there will be fiction author computers that are comparable to humans, like in my lifetime. It wouldn't surprise me at all. When you come down to it, stories are structures, and basically, once an AI has the ability to evaluate the readability of a book, like to evaluate how good is this story, then an AI will be able to try out a whole bunch of variations, evaluate them, and say, here's a story. Now, I might start off with an AI that says, here are the plot beats of a story. Here are the events that happen. And then it's up to, it'll be up to a human to actually, write the prose that conveys the story. But then eventually the computers will get, good at that too. I think I'm just hoping all that happens, after I retire.
Me too, and I'm definitely not looking forward to the day that a computer can make it.
Well, also think about what's next is that, like, with computer graphics being what it is and processor power going up, the computer will be able to write a movie and then create it.
Yeah, completely from scratch. Yeah.
I'm like, or you could even make it custom. It might be in the future that movies aren't these big releases that are made, by huge studios. It's like you tell your computer, I'm in a sad mood. Make me a romantic comedy, please. Oh, and make one of the characters a professional juggler. And then it'll do it.
Now, if you could do that, having both of your big books having been optioned for movies, made into movies, would you make your own movie? Would you remake The Martian, or would you just leave it as it is?
Well, I think they did a fantastic job making The Martian. Or are you talking about in a future where the computer can just remake stuff for you? Or I lost the
can remake stuff for you. For example, now I loved The Martian. It was fantastic. But the book, there was more in the book. So would you as an author prefer to make your own version of The Martian with your AI movie maker, as opposed to just leaving the cultural significance of the original one behind, just leaving it like that?
I'd leave the original one alone, because if I have my AI movie maker, I'd want to see new stuff. I'd be like, hey, I want you to AI movie maker. Here's an idea for my next book. Make me a movie out of it.
I say that sort of tongue in cheek because Stephen King always complains about how he never really likes the movies like The Shining. He never really likes those versions of his books because they get changed and moved around. But
Doesn't bother.
yeah. Now, you also have a semi-new book out, Artemis, which is about lunar colonization. Can you give me just sort of a synopsis of what the premise is?
Sure. Artemis takes place in humanity's first city that's not on Earth. It's on the moon. It's the only city on the moon. The name of the city is Artemis. Its economy is based primarily on tourism. It's very close to the Apollo 11 landing site, which is a big tourist draw. It takes place in the 2080s, and the main conceit is that competition in the commercial space industry drove the price to low Earth orbit down low enough that middle-class people can afford to go into space. And so it becomes economically sensible to build a tourist destination on the moon. The main character is a woman who's a small-time criminal. Mostly she smuggles contraband into the city. Things like tobacco. Flammable things are illegal in the pressurized area. She's a small-time criminal, and she gets an opportunity. She gets offered by a local business magnate the opportunity to do some industrial sabotage on his behalf, and the payoff is good enough to set her for life. And of course, everything goes fine. Everything goes to plan, and there are no problems from that point forward. She gets in way over her head, and that's what the story's about.
Now, your main character, Jazz, is what I found most interesting was that she's poor. She's the low man on the totem pole on the moon. Do you think it would really work that way? If we had a lunar colony, would it sort of break down on that, or would it be something new?
No, I think the economics would be the same. I mean, since Artemis gets its money from the tourism industry, I based it on Caribbean resort towns, like single industry income, tourism industry only income areas. And they all, if you look at them everywhere in the world, regardless of what group of people or culture or whatever makes it, it always ends up the same. There's the glitzy, touristy areas, up, you know, in one place, and then there's kind of the, you know, not so well off people who work and who live there and work at the touristy areas. And there's the people in the middle who kind of service the residents. Like, okay, there's tourists, that means there's waiters, and those waiters need shoes, which is why we have a cobbler, you know. So